Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. Today I'm joined by the 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, as well as the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh. I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Faulkner. And gentlemen, it was a busy week this past week. It all started off on Monday morning when we heard that Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe was heading to Ottawa to debrief the Prime Minister on his trip to China. What did you get from all of that, Kevin?
Well, at least this is getting attention at the highest levels now. For a long time, the federal government didn't seem to want to talk about the Chinese tariff situation, wanted to talk all things US tariff trade related, but seemed to rather ignore the Chinese issue. And they're not ignoring it anymore. The question is, can they or will they be able to do anything about it? But at least it's getting full federal attention. I think it's great that the parliamentary secretary is Cody Blois and went along on the trip with Scott Moe. It's great to see federal provincial cooperation because under the previous prime minister, that was really lacking.
And of course, another person heading to Ottawa this week is Todd Lewis, former president of APAS and former vice president of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. Ryan, you had a chance to speak with Todd about his plans to head to Ottawa for the Senate.
That's right. And this would basically be a proper introduction to federal politics, as his start as a senator was anything but conventional. When he was appointed in February of this year, it was in the middle of the prorogued parliament. And then we had the Liberal leadership race in the spring, as well as the federal election in the spring. It didn't really get started until June. And even then, that was a brief 3 week session. So figuratively speaking, that was kind of more or less dipping his toe into the federal pool. And now he's going to have a chance to do a cannonball into the Senate. So he's looking forward to it. He's going to be on a couple of committees up in the Senate. One of them is the Environment and Energy Committee, as well as Transportation and Communications. So he's kind of bright-eyed and looking forward to it. And we'll see how he does in the Senate.
Kevin, are you looking forward to seeing what Todd Lewis can do in the Senate?
Well, I think anytime that you can send somebody to Ottawa that has some dirt and grease under their fingernails and knows what real farming is like, it's just a benefit to us all. Oftentimes, there's just an information vacuum, and hopefully, Todd Lewis and others can help to fill that void and increase the profile of agriculture in Ottawa.
We also got this week, during the middle of the week or so, crop reports from both Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And the latest Manitoba crop report suggests 50% of harvest is now complete, but the northwest and southwest parts of the province are only at 42%, while Saskatchewan's crop report suggests 53% of the crop is now in the bin. And Ryan, that was something that we were following this week. It looks like some progress was made in spite of rain.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the rain on Saturday in particular. I remember that was the heaviest rainfall during this past week, and it came down pretty heavy at times. And even I was kind of wondering, like, are my gutters gonna, hold in there, and is my basement gonna be flooded? But thankfully, it wasn't. So, from a farming perspective, anyway, it's gonna help with topsoil moisture levels, mainly for next year. Kind of put a damper on harvest operations for some areas, but they'll take it whenever they can. But again, it'll slow down harvest for a few days. Kind of looking at the weekly rainfall map, I kind of noticed part of the south central, southeast, and even up into the eastern part of the province got the most rain. So that's one aspect, I guess. And then in my travels this week, as part of the country cookout, saw a lot of fields. With stubble, basically. So a lot of crops have been taken off. So good to see a lot of progress. And one of the winners, actually, David Sloan, he's just outside of Regina here. He's actually just started harvest. He's had a lot of rain this season, so he hasn't been able to get out into the field until now. And he's just got, I believe it was spring wheat that he's just harvesting this year. So he's really downsizing. And then going back to Todd Lewis finally, he was saying that he was kind of in the process of harvesting some durum, but kind of the bad news there is they found a little bit of Fusarium head blight in durum, so that might affect their yields and the quality of the grain. And speaking of which, with the quality, the crop report had some numbers on that for barley, for I believe it was durum and wheat as well. For the most part, it's mostly in the 2 grade, so still okay, but definitely could be better, obviously. We would all want 100% of the crop in the 1 grade, but 2 is just fine, and it's kind of not a surprise. I've been hearing a lot of yields kind of in that average to above average levels, so it's kind of my 2 cents on the crop report.
Kevin, of course, 53% is quite a bit behind for Saskatchewan for this time of year. Is there any need for anyone to be too concerned just yet?
Well, the weather has been, really variable. The west side of the province received very little rainfall, and that's noted in the rainfall map as noted by Ryan. So here, on the west side of the province, there's been lots of progress, but there's still lots of durum fields with regrowth, sometimes a little bit of hail damage or just the late season moisture. And the crop is sitting there, and producers just not able yet to get at it. Also see some canola out yet. So we're in a situation where if the weather forecast is correct and we end up with another week of pretty dry weather, that's going to go a long way to propelling us to the finish line. But there's still a lot of combining to do out there, and we could still run into weather delays with the last half of this crop.
Yeah, some issues here with rain as well, as you were mentioning, Ryan, as there was some heavy rains in your area. Here in the Yorkton area, in Yorkton itself, we received about an inch of rain last weekend, but straight east of here towards Stornoway, Roxton, which isn't very far away, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes away, some farms there, 7 inches of rain in that period. Flooding in Roxton, apparently. So it was very hit and miss. As you know, heavy rains are generally pretty streaky like that. So, yeah, they will be a little while before they're back in the fields. With that note, though, we also heard the Bank of Canada cut their interest rate from 2.75 to 2.5% this week. Ryan, you got a chance to speak with Adam Pacallo on that.
Yeah, he wasn't surprised by the decision by the Bank of Canada to reduce the interest rate. He said that was kind of the consensus going into the announcement that there would be a rate cut just based on numbers that they've seen of the Canadian economy. Generally speaking, it's shown to be weaker as the tariff issue with the U.S., and you could lump in China as well, continues to drag on. So they're going to continue to kind of keep an eye on that and kind of focus on the bigger picture as to, how that affects household spending and inflation. We saw the inflation rate kind of tick up a little bit to 1.9%. And some job numbers were kind of looking weak as well. So again, just kind of keeping tabs on it. And Picalo could see at least one more rate cut for the year. So their next decision is on October 29th.
So, Kevin, that interest rate cut, will that make any significant difference for the average farmer out there?
Well, eventually it comes back to indicate what you pay on borrowed money. It doesn't affect immediately, but as loans are renewed, or if you've got a variable rate on something, then it will come into play a little sooner. But the message I take from the rate cut is that the Canadian economy is not doing that well, and stimulus is needed. So that has all sorts of other ramifications for federal deficit numbers that we're going to hear about in the November budget. And a weakening economy is certainly not good news for anybody.
We also heard the Grain Growers of Canada is really highlighting the fact that the capital gains tax changes that everyone's been railing against for quite some time now are still scheduled to go into effect on January 1st, 2026. I think that was Ryan, you had a chance to speak with Kyle Larkin on that.
Yeah, that was as I asked him what the priorities were going into this fall's parliamentary session, and the capital gains tax was certainly near the top, if not at the top of their priority list. One of a few things, but yeah, he said that they want those changes to be completely eradicated and go back to what it was previously. And I could imagine for a lot of farmers, especially those who might be transitioning, handing the farm off to the younger generation, They would greatly appreciate that. So we'll see where that goes moving forward. They had some meetings scheduled with MPs and the Prime Minister's office as well. So that's definitely going to be brought up in future conversations. And who knows, we could see a change before January 1, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Kevin, what do you think? Is it going to happen? And it's pretty important, I believe, for farmers out there to make sure that this does get completely canceled.
Yeah, certainly farm groups and everybody is really pushed for this change. I thought it was a fait accompli. I thought the change had been made, but instead it is still on the books. I believe the government will act on this. I believe if you go back, there was promises in that regard, and they will act to fully get rid of the change in capital gains tax. But I've been surprised before.
Kevin, we also heard you had a chance to speak with a guy from BASF about Invigor Gold, and were your fears aquamed at all, or not really?
Well, it was nice to see that BASF reached out after we did the interview with Rick Mitzel of Sask Mustard, raising the alarm. Mustard is a funny commodity, condiment mustard. Europe, one of our main customers, does not want GMO in their mustard. Japan does not want GMO contamination in their mustard. And BASF has come out with, or is going to come out with, Invigor Gold, which is canola quality mustard, and will be able to cross-contaminate or cross-pollinate with brown and oriental mustard. And Sask Mustard believes this would be a terrible problem and a loss of markets for the mustard industry. So it's interesting that BASF had reached out and said, no, we want to respond to that. But their response really is that we've got a few years before this is going to be introduced. We're going to work with all of our stakeholders and figure out ways around these issues. And I just don't see a clear path forward where Invigor Gold can be introduced and not affect the mustard industry. But we'll have to take them at their word for now, and at least they're open to discussions and then they realize they need to get regulatory approval for this, so they need to get a lot of stakeholders on side.
All right. And one thing we wanted to conclude our show with today was the fact that there's a new University of Saskatchewan program aimed at students or professionals looking for a base of prairie agricultural knowledge. It's called the Certificate in Introductory Agriculture, and it's a one-year program covering topics like the basics of agrology, agricultural science as it relates to the environment, socioeconomic impacts of agriculture, and professional practice in agriculture, all being, of course, offered at the University of Saskatchewan. How does this sound to you, Kevin?
It'll be interesting to see what the uptake is on that. I can see some actual research scientists that are working in the depths of genetic engineering, for instance, or have come to Canada from other nations that might want some introductory knowledge on agriculture so they can better understand the research they're doing and how that's going to have ramifications for producers. But beyond that, I have a little bit of a tough time understanding exactly what the market for this program will be. So for me, it's a little bit of a wait and see.
All right. And then, of course, Kevin, you're coming to us from your farm near Cabri. How is your harvest going?
Got about 160 acres of really poor canola left. Some of it was swathed and it's been combined quite some time ago. And I thought this stuff would be ready to go by now, but so much green regrowth in it, it was hailed quite badly that we're now turning out the swather again and got a neighbor swathing it as we speak. So it'll be a week or so before we can get in the field with that. But that's all that's left from a combining point of view is just one quarter section of canola that is nothing to write home about. But so we're in the final stretch.
Sounds good. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh, and Ryan Young, the 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director, I'm Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton, saying so long until next time.